Do rich people think differently? Or were they just born lucky? Let me ask you something. If you took every dollar from the wealthiest people on earth and distributed it equally among everyone, what do you think would happen? Studies and historical patterns suggest that within a decade, most of that wealth would flow right back to the same type of people. Not necessarily the same individuals, but the same type of thinkers. Why? Because wealth isn't primarily stored in bank accounts. It's stored in the mind. Most of us grew up learning about money, but never learning how to think about money. We were taught to get good grades, to get a stable job, to save a little, spend wisely, and hope for the best. And yet, we look around. Two people, same city, same starting salary, same economic background. You see, 10 years later, one of them is financially free. The other is still wondering where the month went before the paycheck did. What happened? Was it luck? Was it connections? Was it some secret investment tip? Sometimes, but far less often than we think. The deeper answer, the one most people never talk about, is psychology. Rich people don't just have different bank accounts. They have different mental operating systems. The way they process risk, the way they see time, the way they define themselves, the way they respond to failure, the way they make decisions at 2 a.m. when no one is watching. It's all different. And here's the part that should excite you. A mindset is not something you're born with. It's something you build. That means everything we're going to talk about today, every psychological pattern, every mental shift, every thinking habit is learnable. In this video, we're going to go deep. Not surface-level motivation, not generic advice, like believe in yourself. We're going to look at the actual psychological differences between how wealthy people think and how the average person thinks. Across 6 core areas: how they see scarcity and abundance, how they experience time, how they relate to risk and fear, how they define their own identity, how they shape and protect their mental environment, and how they take action, even when they're not ready. By the end of this video, you won't just feel inspired. You'll understand something. An understanding, unlike motivation, doesn't fade by tomorrow morning. So let's start at the foundation. Because before we talk about money, investments, or strategy, we need to talk about the 2 mental worlds people live in, and which one you might be living in right now. Scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. Some authority. Think about the last time you wanted something, a better job, a new opportunity, a chance to invest, a moment to take a risk, and then think about what happened inside your head right after that thought appeared. Did you think, how can I make this work? Or did you think, yeah, but what if it doesn't? That gap, that tiny, almost invisible gap between those 2 responses, that's where everything begins. Psychologists have studied the mental patterns of people across different income levels, different cultures, different backgrounds for decades. And one of the most consistent findings is this: the way a person frames the world determines the financial decisions they make, and those decisions, compounded over years, determine their financial reality. But this framing, this invisible lens through which you see every opportunity, every risk, every dollar, one has a name. It's called your mindset. And when it comes to wealth, there are fundamentally 2 types: the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. Now, before you think, This is just positive thinking, wrapped in different words. Stay with me, because this goes much deeper than motivation. This is about the structure of how your brain processes reality. But the scarcity mindset is built on one core belief: there is not enough money, not enough opportunity, not enough time, not enough success to go around. And here's what makes this so powerful and so dangerous. For many people, this belief wasn't chosen, it was installed. It came from watching parents stress about bills at the kitchen table. It came from being told, money doesn't grow on trees. It came from a culture that treated wealth as something that happens to lucky people, not something built by intentional people. Over time, but these messages didn't just become thoughts. They became filters. And when you see the world through a scarcity filter, something strange happens to your brain. Research shows when people are mentally consumed by financial scarcity, their cognitive bandwidth drops significantly. You become so focused on surviving the present moment that you lose the ability to think clearly about the future. It's not laziness, it's cognitive overload. The scarcity mindset keeps you busy putting out today's fires, which means you never have the mental space to prevent tomorrow's fires. Now, the abundance mindset is different. It doesn't mean believing money falls from the sky. It doesn't mean ignoring real financial problems. It means operating from a fundamentally different belief. There is enough, and more is possible. People with an abundance mindset see the world as expandable, not limited, not fixed, expandable. They don't ask, how do I protect what I have? They ask, how do I grow what I have? They don't see other people's success as competition. They see it as evidence, proof that it's possible. And most importantly, they'll tolerate uncertainty because they understand uncertainty is the price of entry for anything meaningful. And here's the truth most people never hear. This mindset can change. The shift happens through exposure, through evidence, through repetition, exposure to new ideas, evidence that a different reality is possible, and repetition, because the brain changes through consistent patterns, not one moment of inspiration. The scarcity voice may still speak, but now you recognize it, you name it, and then you choose differently. Not, what if this fails? But, what if this works? And what would I need to do to give it the best chance possible? That question, repeated over time, changes everything. It changes your decisions, your actions, and ultimately, your life. How rich people experience time and why. It changes everything. There's an experiment that changed how psychologists understand human behavior. In the late 1960s, a researcher sat young children at a table. On the table, one marshmallow. The deal was simple. You can eat it now, or you can wait and get 2. Years later, those same children were tracked into adulthood, and the ones who waited had better outcomes, better academic results, better financial stability, better health. One simple ability changed their entire life trajectory. How you relate to time is one of the strongest predictors of where you end up in life. Every person operates with a dominant time orientation. Some people live in the present. Their brain asks, what feels good now? Others live connected to the future. Their brain asks, what will this decision mean in 5 years, in 10, in 20? Wealthy people disproportionately live here, not because they ignore the present, but because they feel the future as real, not abstract, real. Every time you resist an immediate reward, your rational brain fights your emotional brain. Your future fights your present. Every time you invest instead of spend, every time you learn instead of scroll, every time you choose discomfort over comfort, you are building a different life. Delayed gratification is not a personality trait or show, it's a muscle, and most people never train it. Short-term thinking doesn't feel dangerous when you're inside it. It feels safe. It feels realistic. It feels comfortable. But the real cost is invisible. It's not what you spend. It's what you never build. Wealthy people think differently in time. They don't think in months. They think in years, in decades. They treat time as their most valuable asset. Because money can be recovered, time cannot. And most importantly, they connect their present actions to their future identity. They are not sacrificing. They are becoming tools. And this shift is available to anyone. Make your future self clear, real, vivid. Before every decision, ask yourself, will this move me closer to who I want to become? And then choose accordingly. Because your future is not something that happens to you. It's something you build. One decision at a time. They're not fearless. They just calculate differently. Two people stand at the edge of a diving board. It's high. The water below looks far away. Person A feels the fear and steps back. Person B feels the exact same fear and jumps. Most people assume person B wasn't afraid. But that's not true. The fear was always there. The difference was the decision. Wealthy people do not lack fear. They experience it fully, before the investment, before the business, before leaving security behind. Fear was always present. What changed was their relationship with it. For most people, risk feels like danger. The brain sends one message: protect yourself, stay safe, do nothing. This instinct once kept us alive. But today, it keeps most people stuck. Because your brain doesn't distinguish well between physical danger and financial risk. It reacts the same way. Wealthy thinkers see risk differently. They don't ask, should I be afraid? They ask, is this cost worth the return? That question changes everything. Because risk is no longer a threat. It's an investment. They also think in asymmetry. They ask, what is the worst realistic outcome? And what is the best? And most importantly, are they equal? If the downside is small, but the upside can change their life, they move. Failure does not define them. Failure informs them. Failure is data, not identity, not judgment, just information. And there is one fear Wealthy people care what after we more than any other. Not failure, stagnation, the fear of standing still, the fear of watching years pass without progress, the fear of becoming the person who never tried. So when they feel fear, they don't retreat. They calculate, they evaluate, and when the future is worth the cost, they act. Because in the end, the greatest risk is not failure. The greatest risk is living a life controlled by fear. Define who you are first. The money follows. There's a sentence living inside your mind. Quiet, invisible, but powerful. It sounds like this. I'm just not the kind of person who has real money. I'm just not the kind of person who runs a business. I'm just not the kind of person who gets ahead. That sentence is shaping your future more than any investment, more than any opportunity, because your behavior follows your identity, not the other way around. Most people try to change their life by changing their actions. They try harder. They stay disciplined. For a while, it works. And then they fall back. Not because they are weak, because their identity never changed. You cannot outperform who you believe you are. Not long term. The identity always wins. Wealthy people see themselves differently. Well, not as people who have everything figured out, but as people who figure things out. They believe they are capable. They believe they are adaptable. They believe their future is not defined by their past. This is where I am. Not, this is who I am forever. Identity does not change through words. It changes through evidence, through action. Every time you act like the person you want to become, you cast a vote for that identity. One vote means nothing, but hundreds, thousands change everything. You don't need to fully believe first. You need to act first. Belief follows action. So ask yourself one question. Who are you becoming? And then prove it with action. Because the moment you change your identity, you change your life. And when identity changes, money follows. Your brain is a social organ. Whether you realize it or not, every person you spend time with is shaping you. Silently, constantly. Neuroscience calls this mirroring. When you observe someone, your brain doesn't just watch. It rehearses internally, automatically, without permission. The same neural circuits that fire when you act, fire when you watch someone else act. This is why confidence is contagious. And so is fear. So is doubt. So is ambition. You are absorbed the emotional reality of your environment, and over time, it becomes your reality. You become what you are surrounded by. Not because you choose to, because your brain adapts to survive. There is a powerful truth most people ignore. You do not rise to your intentions. You fall to your environment. If the people around you see money as stress, you will feel stress. If they see wealth as impossible, your brain will believe it's impossible. Because the brain is designed to normalize its surroundings. It asks one question: what is normal here? And then it makes that your identity. Wealthy thinkers understand this. They protect their environment. They choose carefully who they listen to, what they watch, what they read, because they know every input becomes part of their thinking and eventually their future. But the hardest part is this: sometimes the environment holding you back is familiar. It's comfortable. It's people you love, and growth can feel like betrayal. But growth is not abandonment. It is expansion. You don't have to leave people behind. You simply step forward. You add new voices, new standards, new environments, until your brain accepts a new normal. Because in the end, your life will reflect what your environment made familiar. So the real question is, who is shaping you right now? Wealthy people don't wait until they're ready. They become ready by moving. There is a sentence millions of people repeat every day: I'll start later, when I have more money, when I understand more, when the timing is right. It sounds responsible, it sounds intelligent, but for most people, it becomes a prison, because later never arrives. Here is the truth most people never realize: you do not feel ready before action. You feel ready because of action. Confidence is not the cause. It is the result. Think about the first time you did something difficult. You were uncertain. You were uncomfortable. You were not ready. But you moved, and through movement, you became someone new. Most people are trapped in analysis. They learn, they prepare, they wait, and wait, and wait, until opportunity becomes regret. Wealthy thinkers operate differently. They follow a simple rule: good enough. Move, not perfect, not certain, just enough to begin. Because they understand, clarity comes from movement, not from thinking. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates identity. You stop being someone who dreams and become someone who acts. Perfectionism keeps people stuck. Comparison keeps people small. Waiting for permission keeps people powerless. But action changes everything, even small action, even imperfect action. Because every step forward rewires your brain and builds a new belief. I am someone who moves. Time will pass anyway. The only question is, who will you become while it passes? The person who waited, or the person who began? You do not need more time. You do not need more confidence. You do not need more permission. You need one decision: to begin. Today, not tomorrow. Today, change your thinking, and you change your life. But the truth goes deeper than that. Because change is not a switch, it's a process. And now, you see the full picture. 6 shifts, 6 ways wealthy thinkers see the world differently. From scarcity to abundance, from short-term comfort to long-term vision, from fear to calculated courage, from fixed identity to growth, from passive environment to intentional environment, from waiting to action. These shifts do not happen overnight. They happen through awareness, through repetition, through choice. Because knowing is not enough. Understanding is not enough. You must become the person who lives it, not perfectly, but consistently. Change begins with something small. One thought, one decision, one action taken today. The distance between where you are and where you want to be is not a gap in intelligence. It is not a gap in talent. It is a gap in thinking. And thinking can change. Slowly, quietly, powerfully. Small shifts create new habits. New habits create new actions. New actions create new results. And new results create new identity. The identity of someone who builds wealth. Not someday, but now. That person is not someone else. That person is you. Becoming. If this message changed something inside you, don't let it stop here. Share it, because growth spreads. Subscribe if you're ready to continue the journey. Because the most important investment you will ever make is in your mind, and everything else follows. I'll see you in the next one.